Fontaine is a drug dealer in a suburban neighborhood called the Glen with odds against him and a schedule he keeps daily. His mother stays in her room all day and rarely speaks to Fontaine, and he still mourns the death of his younger brother. Slick Charles, one of Fontaine's customers, initiates a fight with one of his many sex workers, Yo-Yo. Fontaine goes to confront Slick Charles, who owes Fontaine money, and encounters Yo-Yo on the way. Fontaine is able to get some of the money from Slick but is then fatally shot by an opposing drug dealer named Isaac as he leaves. The next morning, Slick is shocked when Fontaine shows up for the money once again, somehow alive and without any recollections of the previous night's events. The two find Yo-Yo to confirm Slick's claims of his death, which confuses Fontaine. He remembers a man, bleeding from a gunshot, was kidnapped by a black SUV, which is now parked outside of a trap house. Fontaine goes inside the house to investigate with Slick and Yo-Yo. They discover an elevator leading to an underground lab. Inside, a white scientist with an afro tells them that the operation has gone widespread. Slick snorts a mysterious white substance he thinks is cocaine, but ends up laughing and accidentally killing the scientist after Yo-Yo causes a small explosion. Before they leave, the trio discovers a corpse lying on a table, identical to Fontaine. The next morning, Fontaine breaks into the house again, only to find that the entrance to the lab has disappeared. At a fried chicken restaurant, the diners are giddy with laughter, which makes Slick realize that the fried chicken contains the same substance that he consumed previously. Yo-Yo seduces the restaurant manager, who looks similar to the scientist Slick killed. She discovers that the entirety of the Glen is being surveilled and recorded. They discover that the substance is also being used in grape drinks and hair products. Through some hidden messages from an alcoholic Fontaine encounters daily, they discover a black church where the group becomes unsettled by lyrics that the churchgoers sing, as a result of the grape drink's influence. After the service, the group discovers an elevator in the altar. They discover that the lab facility spans the entire Glen area and witness black people being subject to disturbing behavioral experiments. They find that the lab has clones of every Glen resident, including Fontaine and Slick Charles. They watch the predominantly white scientists control the clones through songs and visual stimulation. They exit through a strip club after Fontaine sets off an alarm. The DJ brainwashes the clubgoers with a song and then forces them to chase the trio. A white man named Nixon and a Fontaine clone named Chester show up to halt the clubgoers. Nixon reveals that scientists conduct experiments on impoverished, predominantly black populations, including the Glen, to allow the operation to go unnoticed and supposedly achieve peace in America. Nixon uses a trigger word, causing the entire crowd to follow his commands with the exception of Yo-Yo. Nixon tells Fontaine to put a pistol in his mouth, which he does. Yo-Yo pleads for his life, and Nixon uses another trigger word to release them from their hypnotic state. The entire crowd was conscious the entire time, unable to control their actions. Despite the fact that Yo-Yo was a witness who was unaffected, Nixon still threatens to use it on the crowd again if they don't stop their investigation. The next day, Fontaine falls deeper into a state of despair after discovering that his mother, whom he had never actually seen, was just a voice on a tape recorder. Yo-Yo decides to take matters into her own hands, but has her identity exposed and is kidnapped by Nixon. Fontaine comes up with a plan with Slick and Isaac to rescue Yo-Yo, faking his death to sneak into the lab undetected. Fontaine lets Slick and Isaac in to storm the lab with numerous residents of the Glen. They free the black people being experimented on, including the clones, while Yo-Yo frees herself and finds Slick. If you enjoy watching this video, then subscribe to Angel Recaps for the latest movie's explanation. Fontaine is overpowered by Chester and taken to an older version of Fontaine, revealed to be the original Fontaine. He explains that he is helping scientists to create peace by whitewashing black people into white people, through mind control and generational breeding. The racially motivated murder of Fontaine's little brother by a police officer prompted him to start making the clones. After the elder Fontaine claims that the country would be better with assimilation than annihilation, Fontaine uses Nixon's trigger word on Chester and has him shoot the original. Meanwhile, Yo-Yo stalls Nixon from killing her before Slick shoots him in the head. The facility entrance to the church opens up, spilling naked clones out to the public and exposing the country's secret operation. After Yo-Yo announces her retirement from her job, the trio decides to head to Memphis, to further expose and stop the operation. Meanwhile, in Los Angeles, a man named Tyrone is identical to Fontaine and living the same lifestyle as Fontaine. While with his friends, he watches as one of Fontaine's clones appears on TV, all realizing that Fontaine is a clone of Tyrone.